The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell starts right now. Hello, Lawrence.
Hey, Alicia, thanks. And you're right, Morgan Freeman is going to join us tonight. A great honor to have him here on the program tonight. He appeared, well, his voice was on the show once before. He did a voiceover for us that was just an amazing and beautiful thing. We're going to show some of that when he joins us. But this will be his first appearance, and he has a story of resistance to tell us about. And it's what we all came to work for today. This is what we're all looking forward to.
I love that. Have a great show.
Thanks, Alicia. Thank you. Well, there is exactly one first lady in history who met sex trafficker and raper of children and good friend of Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein. And today, Republicans on the House Oversight Committee decided to question a former first lady who never met Jeffrey Epstein instead of the first lady currently occupying the White House, who was friends with Jeffrey Epstein and his convicted sex trafficking co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. Donald Trump's third wife was friends with both of them. The Epstein files contain emails from Melania Trump to Ghislaine Maxwell complimenting Ghislaine Maxwell. The Epstein files contain no communication at all between Hillary Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell, but Republicans on the committee decided they wanted to subpoena Hillary Clinton. Where is their subpoena for Melania Trump, who actually knew Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? Why aren't they asking Melania Trump, did Donald Trump introduce you to Jeffrey Epstein, or did Jeffrey Epstein introduce you to Donald Trump? Why aren't they asking Melania Trump what she knew about Jeffrey Epstein? The Epstein files show the Palm Beach police chief saying that Donald Trump told him in 2006, quote, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." If true, that would mean that Donald Trump's wife at that time, Melania Trump, knew he was doing this. She would be included in Donald Trump's term, everyone. Melania Trump might have no useful information to provide to the committee, but she did meet Jeffrey Epstein. She was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. She was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell. And it is possible that she knew something, according to her husband, everyone knew. Hillary Clinton, in a written opening statement to the committee today, made the point that not everyone who has been subpoenaed by the committee has been actually required to testify to the committee. The former Secretary of State, who was also a lawyer and worked on the Congressional Committee investigation of corrupt Republican President Richard Nixon at the beginning of her career, reminded the committee, quote, "You subpoenaed 8 law enforcement officials, all of whom ran the Department of Justice or directed the FBI when Epstein's crimes were investigated and prosecuted. Of those 8, only 1 appeared before the committee. 5 of the 6 former attorneys general were allowed to submit brief statements stating they had no information to provide. Hillary Clinton should have been offered exactly the same option." Secretary Clinton did provide the committee with a statement stating she had no information to provide, but the Republicans on the committee refused to accept that statement from her, the same kind of statement they accepted from other former cabinet officials. Secretary Clinton's opening statement was a masterful and thorough condemnation of the Republicans on the committee. She said, quote, "You have made little effort to call the people who show up most prominently in the Epstein files. And when you did, not a single Republican member showed up for Les Wexner's deposition. The institutional failure is designed to protect one political party and one public official." Secretary Clinton identified that public official by name repeatedly in her opening statement, saying, "You have compelled me to testify, fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist your investigation, in order to distract attention from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. Ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he shows up in the Epstein files." Ask him directly under oath. That's right. Ask Donald Trump directly under oath about the accusation in the Epstein files that he assaulted and raped a child. Secretary Clinton, as a former senator, knows how congressional committees should do their work. She told the Republicans on the committee, quote, "A committee run by elected officials with a commitment to transparency would ensure the full release of all the files. It would get to the bottom of reports that DOJ withheld FBI interviews in which a survivor accuses President Trump of heinous crimes. It would subpoena anyone who asked on which night there would be the wildest party on Epstein Island." The Epstein files revealed that Elon Musk asked Jeffrey Epstein that question. When are the Republicans going to subpoena Elon Musk and ask him if he ever went to the wildest party on Epstein Island? And ask him under oath, make him answer that question under oath. And Secretary Clinton spoke authoritatively on the larger issue of sex trafficking, including the sex trafficking of children. She said, quote, "If you are new to this issue, let me tell you, Jeffrey Epstein was a heinous individual, but he's far from alone. This is not a one-off tabloid sensation or a political scandal. It's a global scourge with an unimaginable human toll. My work combating sex trafficking goes back to my days as First Lady. I worked to pass the first federal legislation against trafficking and was proud that my husband signed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which increased support for survivors and gave prosecutors better tools for going after traffickers." Let's hear from Melania Trump about what she has done in her position as First Lady about sex trafficking or anything else. Hillary Clinton described what she did as Secretary of State. "I oversaw nearly 170 anti-trafficking programs in 70 nations and directly pressed foreign leaders to crack down on trafficking networks in their countries. Every year, we published a global report to shine a light on abuses. The findings of those reports triggered sanctions by countries failing to make progress, so they became a powerful diplomatic tool to drive concrete action. I insisted that the United States be included in the report for the first time ever in 2011 because we must hold ourselves not just to the same standard as the rest of the world, but to an even higher one. Sex trafficking and modern slavery should have no place in America, none. Infuriatingly, the Trump administration gutted the Trafficking in Persons Office at the State Department, cutting more than 70% of the career civil and foreign service experts who worked so hard to prevent trafficking crimes. The message from the Trump administration to the American people and the world could not be clearer. Combating human trafficking is no longer an American priority under the Trump White House. That is a tragedy. It's a scandal. It deserves vigorous investigation and oversight. A committee endeavoring to stop human trafficking would seek to understand what specific steps are needed to fix a system that allowed Epstein to get away with his crimes in 2008. It would demand that Secretary Rubio and Attorney General Bondi testify about why this administration is abandoning survivors and playing into the hands of traffickers. It would put forth legislation to provide more resources and force this administration to act. But that's not happening. Donald Trump, who was called a pedophile protector by an auto worker at a Ford factory, is running an administration that has eliminated the jobs of most of the people who were working every day to prevent sex trafficking crimes. The people who were working to stop the next Jeffrey Epstein. Donald Trump fired them, even though we all know that in Washington, the rules don't apply to Republicans. Republicans continue to find ways to shock by breaking rules that have never been broken before. Today, it was Republican Lauren Boebert's turn to do something that has never been done before and is and always has been completely against the rules. Lauren Boebert took a photograph of Secretary Clinton during the deposition and immediately released it publicly to a Trump-supporting media clown. Secretary Clinton had every right, as soon as that happened, to leave the deposition, to just walk out. The Republicans would have no ability at all to prevent Secretary Clinton from leaving the deposition after one of their members violated the rules of that deposition and the rules of every congressional committee procedure in the history of Congress. Secretary Clinton, upon learning of the violation, decided not to leave, but instead told the chairman that the news media should now be allowed in the room to cover her testimony now that the Republicans have broken the seal of that room. After half an hour, Secretary Clinton decided to resume her testimony and further humiliate the Republicans who were afraid to question the two people who were friends of Jeffrey Epstein, Donald and Melania Trump. Secretary Clinton spoke to reporters after the deposition, which was held near her home in Chappaqua, New York.
I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices. So it's on the record numerous times. It then got, at the end, quite unusual because I started being asked about UFOs and a series of questions about Pizzagate, one of the most vile, bogus conspiracy theories that was propagated on the internet, that was serving as the basis of a member's questions to me.
And here's what some of the Democrats in the deposition had to say.
One of the things that's been confirmed today is that in addition to having no relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, Secretary Clinton has no relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. But there are important questions we should be asking the Trump administration about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I hope that our Republican colleagues will join us in asking these questions. Why is it that Donald Trump has refused to rule out the pardon, the clemency that Ghislaine Maxwell is campaigning for?
House Republicans need to get serious about this investigation. I understand now fully why Secretary Clinton wanted to make this deposition and her hearing public, because the reality is we're talking to the wrong person today. Who we should be talking to instead are people who are actually mentioned in the files, people who have made misleading statements about their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
We should depose the person that is mentioned in the Epstein files almost more than any other person next to Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's Donald Trump.
Leading off our discussion tonight is Democratic Congressman Suhas Subramanyam of Virginia. He is a member of the Oversight Committee and was at that deposition today. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Why did this go on for 7 hours?
It was very repetitive. And again, I'll reiterate what I just said earlier. I wish it was public because it was humiliating for the Republicans there. They kept trying to corner Secretary Clinton. They basically asked the same question 100 times. Did you know Jeffrey Epstein? Did you associate with him? Did you know Ghislaine Maxwell? How did you know her if you knew her? And she said the same thing over and over again, that this basically could have been said over written testimony and was said, which is that she didn't know the guy. And meanwhile, there's so many other people in the files that are released. Remember, there's 2.5 files that haven't been released, 10 million files. And the reality is we're talking to the wrong people.
She was asked about the one linkage that could be found to Ghislaine Maxwell, which is that Ghislaine Maxwell apparently ended up at her daughter's wedding as someone else's guest. Let's listen to what Secretary Clinton said about that to reporters after the deposition.
Why was Ghislaine Maxwell invited to your daughter Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010? She'd already been mentioned in a civil lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre before that. Jeffrey Epstein had already been convicted before.
She came as the +1, the guest of someone who was invited.
The +1 from hell. We've all seen that at weddings and other functions where someone shows up with the inappropriate escort for the event. I assume Republicans kept going over and over on that point.
Absolutely. And in the end, as Secretary Clinton mentioned, they started asking about UFOs and Pizzagate. And they were even, by the end of the deposition, asking for advice on how to move the investigation forward. That's where we were at the last hour. So, again, we didn't really get much. What was really striking to me was that there were 10 or 11 Republicans there. I felt like I was at a Republican caucus meeting. But at the Ohio deposition of Lex Wexner, who he bankrolled Jeffrey Epstein's operations, there were 0 Republicans. So that just shows you where their head's at in this investigation. The real people who were, like Wexner, who was a co-conspirator, named as a co-conspirator, they weren't anywhere to be seen. But with Hillary Clinton, they're all there in full force asking questions for 7 hours.
The part of her opening statement that actually intrigued me the most was a focus that has been lost including, by the way, I would even say in our coverage of this, because we've been covering the Epstein case, the Maxwell case, and this sprawling worldwide conspiracy. But Secretary Clinton brought our focus to the worldwide problem, which she addressed both as First Lady and, even more importantly, as Secretary of State, and the work she described there, which not a single Republican on that committee is familiar with, and not one of them cared about when Donald Trump dismantled it.
Yeah, she talked about that extensively. And one of the interesting things she's brought up is that the Republicans have cut funding to actually go after human trafficking here and around the world. And now there's less prosecutors to go after the perpetrators of these terrible crimes. So what is this investigation really about? Is this about going after Democrats, as Republicans kind of see it? Or is this about actually protecting women and standing up to perpetrators so that this never happens again?
Congressman Suhas Subramaniam, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And coming up, our next guest has issued a report showing how Donald Trump's federal invasion forces that attacked Minneapolis now seem to be preparing for a war. Senator Adam Schiff joins us next. Armed for Violence. That's the title of the report released by Democratic Senator Adam Schiff. It is a new 33-page report revealing that in the last year, Donald Trump has committed at least $144 million to purchase large quantities of weapons and munitions for ICE and Customs and Border Protection. AR-style rifles, tasers, tear gas, other lethal weapons. Senator Schiff's report says, in just 1 year, ICE's spending commitments on weapons, ammunition, and accessories surged fourfold, over 360% when compared to ICE's contracts in 2024. In 2025, CBP's contracts for weapons, ammunition, and accessories doubled when compared to CBP's 2024 totals. Joining us now is Democratic Senator Adam Schiff of California. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, thank you very much for joining us tonight. This is the kind of report that is so vital to our understanding of what is happening now. What are the key points of your findings?
Well, we wanted to go through DHS's contracting records and document just how much they're spending to militarize this effectively new police force, this palace guard of the president's that is wreaking such havoc in our cities. And we found dramatic increases in spending on weapons. As you said, ICE agents will be equipped with now 3 to 4 times the amount of weapons as the previous year. Customs and Border Protection doubling their expenditure on the same. And I think what we're seeing is a dangerous combination of a much more heavily armed immigration law enforcement complex. At the same time, we heard whistleblower testimony this week that they've cut the training for these new ICE agents, and they're getting inadequate training on when to use these weapons and how to use these weapons. That is a really dangerous mix. And we wanted to sound the alarm with this report that we're seeing the emergence of a kind of law enforcement or immigration enforcement industrial complex, because it's not just the weapons. We're seeing dramatic increases in expenditures on detention centers they want to build around the country. And this is a way of gathering its own momentum. And we need to be aware of what's happening, that we're building a not small army now that's going to be policing American streets.
So this brings to mind Donald Trump's so-called border czar, Tom Homan, caught on videotape an undercover FBI video of him accepting $50,000 in cash for this purpose. This is what it was designed for. It was supposed to be about helping people. He was then in the business of helping people get these kinds of contracts. And he was talking about being able to help people get these kinds of contracts, help companies get these kinds of contracts if Donald Trump won the presidential election.
Well, that's exactly right. And we're broadening our look at what DHS is doing because I think undoubtedly we are going to find just massive amounts of waste and fraud. We're going to find no bid contracting by DHS that, you know, the beneficiaries of which are friends of Kristi Noem and friends of Corey Lewandowski. We have thrown so much money at DHS in that big, ugly bill, just billions and billions and billions of dollars that, you know, they are going to rush to spend that. It is just a feeding frenzy. And so, you know, there's undoubtedly going to be over time the exposure of massive amounts of insider deals. So this is just the beginning. This is really the tip of the iceberg in terms of what ICE and DHS and Border Protection are spending, who's going to get the contracts, when contracts are going to be let in a matter of hours without real competition. Undoubtedly, the graft, like in other parts of this Trump administration, will be profound.
And there are hundreds of Trump-friendly lobbyists in Washington who are trying to do exactly what Tom Homan was trying to do when that $50,000 was passed to him, basically broker these deals for companies who want to sell these weapons.
Well, I think that's exactly right. We're already seeing the pardons that are being given out by the president to people that have donated to him or donated to his inaugural committee or this or that, or are represented by close friends of the president. They're managing to get pardons. So pardons seem effectively for sale. In, you know, the Gulf, I think our national security is for sale to the highest bidder that will invest the most in the Trump family cryptocurrencies. We're seeing, I think, really throughout the federal government, at the Justice Department, for example, whether it's, you know, Bondi's family, cutting deals, antitrust cases going away. You know, it is just like a corrupt feeding frenzy with everyone trying to grab as much as they can, knowing that they're just going to have 3 more years to do this and they need to get while the getting is good.
Senator Adam Schiff, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And coming up, the Trump Justice Department, which is really the Trump Protection Department, issued a statement today saying that they are investigating the possible removal from the Epstein files of documents that include the unproven accusation that Donald Trump assaulted and raped a child. That's next with Andrew Weissmann. Donald Trump's Justice Department, which is, of course, functioning as the Trump Protection Department, issued a written statement appearing to say that they will investigate documents that may be missing from the Epstein files that contained information about an accusation by an Epstein survivor who told the FBI that Donald Trump assaulted her and raped her when she was 14 years old. Donald Trump has not been charged, as everyone knows, and has generally denied wrongdoing, but he has not said one word about that particular accusation. MS Now's Lisa Rubin is reporting that Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who served as Donald Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer, did not even begin to formulate a system for protecting the privacy of Epstein survivors in the Epstein files until January of this year, which was several weeks after the deadline imposed by law for releasing the Epstein files. And MS Now's Carol Leonnig is reporting that FBI Director Kashyap Patel has fired at least a dozen FBI agents who were involved in the investigation of Donald Trump's criminal possession of classified documents. The FBI Agents Association condemned the firings as illegal and unjustified. Hours before yesterday's firings, Kashyap Patel told Reuters that the FBI subpoenaed his phone records when he was a private citizen in 2022 and 2023 during Special Prosecutor Jack Smith's investigations. Joining our discussion now is Andrew Weissmann, former FBI General Counsel and an MS Now legal analyst. Andrew, what do you make of the written statement today that seemed to say we are looking at that issue of the missing documents from the Epstein files that include the accusation of Donald Trump committing a crime?
Well, let's just understand what the government's position here is. And it may be true, but I leave to the audience how likely that is. That the one report that was released, which doesn't have Donald Trump's name in it, so it doesn't explicitly identify him, that was something that was released in the latest huge tranche that we got. But remember, just one tranche. There's still millions reportedly that have not been turned over. But we're supposed to believe that the other interviews, but the 3 other interviews where Donald Trump is apparently named. I should point out The Guardian is reporting that they actually have now seen those documents and gotten confirmation that they are real from the administration. Those 3 reports that have Donald Trump's name, those have not been released. That's a coincidence. I mean, remember, this is a department that knows exactly where every document and every photo of Donald Trump is in those Epstein files. And the ones where he has his name there and his photograph may exist, those have not been released, but a report where his name is not there, that's the one that's released. It seems to me it does not pass the smell test.
But where's the momentum here? Are we likely to see the stuff that has been hidden that The Guardian now apparently has seen?
I think we are. I think, this is one where they're caught. And I think they're going to have to just go with the story that they deny it. But again, this is one where there's both the question of the underlying report, whether it's credible, but then there's the question, as you know, Lawrence, very well, of the cover-up. Because one thing that's absolutely clear is we are seeing, in my view, a cover-up of monumental proportions. It would be very, very simple for the President of the United States to announce publicly that every single document and every single image related to him has been made public, and that no privileges, no duplicative claims, nothing. It has all been turned out and turned over to the public. Why wouldn't you do that if there's nothing to hide?
And the other thing to keep in mind for everyone, of course, is that Donald Trump spent a year fighting the release of the Epstein files. It's what his first year of this term of his presidency was entirely about, was fighting the release of the Epstein files until he got overwhelmed by that vote in the House of Representatives, that vote in the Senate, which was beyond a veto-proof majority. If Donald Trump had tried to veto that bill, there were enough votes to override his veto. He knew every day that he was fighting the release of the Epstein files what the Epstein files said about him. He knew about this. This was his attorney general's job, and deputy attorney general's job was to go to talk to him in the Oval Office and tell him exactly what the Epstein files said about him. So he knew this stuff was there when he was trying to prevent the release of any Epstein files.
I couldn't agree with you more that it's really important for people to remember that what is coming out is new to us, but it is not new to the people of the Department of Justice at the White House. They know all this stuff. So, for instance, when we talked about Howard Lutnick and what his sort of bogus press conference, or where he's like his press statement, which is, I cut off all ties because he's just so gross, they knew that was not true. A sitting cabinet member had just, lied to the American people and sort of trying to tout himself as a paragon of virtue. They knew that was not true. It's only we that did not know and are only finding out now. So it's an incredibly important point that this is all material that they have gone over and know about, and only we are learning it now.
And Lisa Rubin's reporting that Todd Blanche didn't even get around to thinking about how do you properly release these files in terms of protecting the privacy of the survivors who are mentioned in there. Didn't even begin to do that until January.
Well, let's remember if the number one reason that you are in the department is to help victims of crime. That is why you were there. That is the most noble part and the best part of your job. Whether he started now, whether he started months ago, the one thing we know is they haven't done it. These victims were re-victimized when public material was put out with their personal identifying information. That is like their addresses, telephone numbers, bank records, even images of them which really should never have been seen publicly. That is your number one job. It is either intentional or reckless. Either way, it is horrendous when that was your one job, that was to protect these people.
Andrew Weissman, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And coming up, a great honor for us, Oscar winner Morgan Freeman will join us with a story of resistance, a story he's been trying to tell for 15 years and will now be told in an 8-episode limited series on Amazon Prime titled The Grey House. Morgan Freeman will join us next. Oscar winner Morgan Freeman made his first and only appearance on this program on the day of John Lewis's funeral, July 30th, 2020. On that day, the New York Times published an essay by John Lewis that he wrote knowing that his life was coming to an end. His wish was for the New York Times to publish the piece on the day of his funeral. When I read it, my first thought was that I should read the piece in its entirety on this program that night, and my immediate better thought, my dream, was that Morgan Freeman should read it. I urgently called Hollywood legend Stan Rosenfield, who I know is close to Morgan Freeman, and within minutes, Stan called me back to say Morgan Freeman would rearrange his schedule that day to do a voice recording for us and send it in. And then our brilliant producer, Stephanie Kovac, and editor Andrew Trattler went to work creating the imagery for the piece in which Morgan Freeman delivered John Lewis's last words to the world.
Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence, is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring. When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide.
Morgan Freeman now brings us a true story of resistance and triumph, a story that has never been told on the screen before, the story of Mary Jane Richards, a Black woman working in the home of the President of the Confederacy during the Civil War and leading a spy network of Southern women who were sending in valuable intelligence north to the commanding general for the United States, Ulysses S. Grant, who after the war credited the women for their intelligence gathering. The story is told in 8 episodes, now available on Amazon Prime, titled The Grey House, directed by multiple Oscar nominee Roland Joffe.
We're formulating a new plan. Act fast. I've noted troop placements, battle positions, and supply routes.
Mary Jane!
Yes, sir. I's coming. Check the dress lining.
Heaven help us. If they reconcile, Rhett will move back in with us.
We cannot allow that snoop back in our house.
No, we may have no choice.
Oh.
Joining us now is Academy Award-winning actor Morgan Freeman, executive producer of The Grey House, now available on Amazon Prime. This is such an honor. Thank you very much for being here tonight.
It's my honor. My honor.
I want to go back to that day where I made the panic call. Can we possibly get Morgan Freeman to record John Lewis's words? And your answer, Stan had to call you and he had to call me back, but your answer came back to me in 5 minutes saying you would do it. I get to thank you in person for the first time for that. What was that day like for you to suddenly get a request like that and to be thrown into the middle of that?
I don't know. Like I suppose everybody, I had this real high feeling for John and what he stood for. So to be asked to read his last words to the world, it's an honor. I mean, I can't say any more than that. It's an honor to be asked to do something like that.
We're going to put out the full 5-minute version on social media for people to take in again. But those words are as important today as they were when he wrote them. They really are eternal words that he wrote. Yeah.
A little bit more important, I think.
Yeah.
The world today is not the world he left.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an important message that he left. It should be posted somewhere so we can remind ourselves of it time to time.
With all your life experience, and to say that the world he left is a different world from where we are now, how would you describe where we are now?
Can I use any profanity?
You can say whatever you want.
Well, we have somebody sitting in the White House who's leading us down a shithole. I can't personally understand how a convicted felon, 34 felonious, is that word? Counts of wrongdoing gets to be president. How do you do that? I mean, you say, well, he was camped. I don't care. That ruling went down before he stepped into the Oval Office. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
Were you, with your life experience, did it feel like we were going backwards? Did it feel like the country was on, as Martin Luther King would say, the arc of history was turning toward progress all the time? And did this feel different?
Very different, very different. I'm constantly reminded of Germany in 1935, what was happening there. The brown shirts, those people that are marching through particularly Berlin and rounding up people, putting them in boxcars and sending them off. Now, this administration wants to build large detention centers, and for what? Question.
What do you tell young people who are living through this, and this they think is the worst thing? Certainly, if you're 20 years old, 25 years old, this is the worst thing you've seen, is the condition this country's in now.
Absolutely. Absolutely the worst. I don't know what I would say to young people other than, if you are at all aware of where we're headed, where we are right now and where we're headed, and if you don't agree with it, there was one sure way to change the direction of our country: vote.
That the old message is the new message.
Yes, yes.
Let's go to Grey House. It took you 15 years to get this story told?
Yes, a lot of things.
By the way, not that unusual a Hollywood story.
Exactly.
In fact, it's...
Exactly, yeah. Leslie Grafe came to us some 15 years ago with this idea. It was a script, and we've been nursing it. Sometimes, you put things on the shelf and let them ripen, as it were. every project has its own time to surface. And that's, I think, what we're experiencing with the Gray House.
You teamed up with Kevin Costner producing this, and you got an incredible cast. Ben Vereen, you have Mary Louise Parker here, you have Emma Davis in the lead role there, Paul Anderson. Yep. It's just an incredible group that you pulled together here.
Yeah, Roland Jaffe was our director, and it's. Have you seen any part of it yet?
Yes, yes.
It's spellbinding, I think.
Yes.
To realize that 4 Southern women of all stripes, a couple of them are high society, one is low society, one is black, they, amongst themselves, just them, organized this little cell that was sending messages, urgent messages, to Ulysses S. Grant. A spy network that was very dangerously set up, but bravery. This was a stop along the Underground Railroad, and they just switched what they were doing there and started messaging.
I knew nothing of this story until you made this story public. I've done some research on it since, and we see all the real historical, factual material that underlies all of this. But it is a story of resistance. It is a story of the same theme of resistance that we saw in Minneapolis this year.
And it's based on fact, actually. The problem with a lot of our history is how much of it we don't know. And these women, this story is actually buried somewhere. And it's time to surface, it's here. Like I said before, every project has its own time. And this is one. 15 years ago, we knew about this story. And it took us to now, thanks to Kevin Costner, to get it done.
Well, thank you very much for bringing it to us, and thank you. I cannot thank you enough for joining us tonight.
It's my great pride and honor.
Thank you very much. We'll be right back. The great Morgan Freeman gets tonight's last word.